at each other while we're doing this on hair trigger or on high alert that we had during the height of the Cold War, close to it. We haven't made a whole lot of progress on these things, but that doesn't mean we're not going to keep trying. But I certainly don't feel, and we don't feel powerful, and we have boards of directors that make these decisions. I'm the funder, but I'm just one voice in deciding on how the money's distributed. Does that answer your question?
Well, it begins to, but I'm wondering if you could comment in sort of a broad sort of way. What checks should there be in place to make sure that power through philanthropic...
Maybe what we ought to do is put a limit on giving. You know, I mean, but you be the one to decide how to do that. And if it passes through the Congress, then we'll adhere to it, okay? We will obey all the laws of the land.
For the sake of this initiative, let's don't make it retroactive, Dick. Okay? Yes, sir. Let me move to the back.
My name is Winston J Lindsley. I operate 2 small to medium-sized businesses in the city of Crusades, in Nuclear City. One of the keys to defense conversion is to create economic opportunities for nuclear scientists and the peaceful means of employment. Is your organization going to do anything to change the perceptions Americans have of Russian businesses being controlled by gangsters engaged in criminal activity? And I'd like to just point out the statistic, the results of the European Bank of Reconstruction and Development, which lent $350 million to small businesses in Russia, the average being $14,000, and have a 99.7% return rate on that investment. Yet American companies continue to refuse to work in Russia because of the misguided perception that we Russian small businesses cannot be trusted.
Let's get to the question now. No, that's a good point. We're going to have to move the questions around.
Let's start with media questions first, if we could.
I think it's a very good and legitimate question. If I could just take, I think you're on to something. I think we really do need to encourage American and Western investment in Russia, but the Russian government has to address the corruption issue. They have to address the perception that taxation is not fair. They have to address the people's concerns about corporate governance in Russia. All of those things are the things they have to do. Now, what we're planning on doing is working with existing organizations and determining whether it's feasible to go forward with some venture capital, particularly along the lines of venture capital that would be in areas where, like nuclear cities, there are a lot of scientists and experts. We want to make sure that when we do that, though, that we're not throwing money away, and we want to make sure that we are going to be given the kind of governance and tax and other considerations that are equitable, and perhaps that will be a cutting edge for others. But we'd like to visit with you and get your views on that, because you obviously have some experience. Yes, sir, right here.
This is for Mr. Turner and for Senator Lugar. This kind of a spin on the earlier question. Are you at all concerned that wealthy individuals are being asked to pick up too much of the slack for the U.S. government, which is not providing enough funding for, not just for this effort, the UN, for other programs?
No, I'm not concerned about that. As a matter of fact, I believe that, as Mr. Turner responded, he has been generous, but he's also asked Sam Nunn, Charlie Curtis, to scope out objectives. He's asked those of us who are here to serve as board members, and we at least have some experience with what the United States government is doing, and we understand the limitations of that. And my own view is that the private sector ought to do a whole lot, not just nuclear proliferation, but for that matter in a broad social agenda in this country. So I'm pleased with this generosity and convinced that we have a good governance, at least of the objectives.
Okay, Kathy, I have no idea who's